President al-Assad tells Wilayati that Iran's support for the Syrian people is the basic factor in the battle against terrorism. Terrorist attack on Ariha and Mastuma in Idlib is foiled by a tunnel and used by the terrorists in Aleppo is destroyed. Good afternoon. President Bashar al-Assad has received Dr. Ali Akbar Wilayati, the Supreme Advisor of the Iranian Islamic Revolution's leader, and the delegation accompanying him. Viewpoints were identical regarding regional issues. Emphasis was laid on the importance of the strategic relationship between the two countries, which constitutes one of the basic factors of confronting Western projects and the delusions of some regional states and extremist forces to revive old empires through assaulting the peoples of the region in a bid to partition and weaken their countries. Wilayati said the mini-world war launched on Syria is due to the latter's important role in the axis of resistance. Those who have been launching this war, he added, have been seeking to destroy this axis. However, he affirmed their efforts have failed because of the Syrian people's and leadership's steadfastness, which made this axis stronger and steadier. The best evidence to this is the big victory recently realized over the terrorists in al-Qalamon area, he added. Dr. Wilayati underlined the Iranian leadership's and people's determination to continue to stand on Syria's side and support it with everything necessary to enhance the Syrian people's resistance in defense of their country and in confrontation of terrorism and the state that support it. On his part, President al-Assad said the support offered by the Islamic Republic of Iran for the Syrian people is a basic asset in the battle against terrorism, while other countries in the region, particularly Saudi Arabia and Turkey, continue their support for the terrorists who are committing the ugliest crimes against Syria's citizens. President al-Assad added that the axis of resistance has been internationally concentrated and no side can ignore it anymore. The most important point realized in favor of this axis is the Iranian accomplishment in the nuclear file. His Excellency pointed out that some agent states try to reply to this achievement through escalating their support for the terrorists, whether in Syria, Iraq or Yemen. This explains the escalating pace of terrorism in those countries, the President said. In a statement to the press, Wilayati said the meeting with President al-Assad was constructive, aimed at boosting cooperation between the two countries. The meeting with President al-Assad was completely friendly and constructive, he said. It was very important because the relationship between Syria and the Islamic Republic of Iran is strategic. Therefore, both countries have to closely exchange viewpoints and brief one another on their viewpoints. In view of the valuable and crucial victories realized recently by the Syrian army and the resistance in al-Qalamon, it was necessary to congratulate President al-Assad and benefit from his viewpoints regarding the way to boost cooperation between Syria and Iran and the resistance axis in general. We have discussed this, and fortunately President al-Assad is pursuing things very well and with a solid will. He is also following up the questions of fighting the terrorists and those who support them, like Saudi Arabia and some regional states who have nothing to do with Islamic and yet alleging otherwise, which complicated things in Syria further. President Bashar al-Assad has discussed with head of the Iranian-Syrian Economic Relations Development Committee, Rustam Qasimi, recent achievements in the field of economic ties between Syria and Iran and the steps being implemented to consolidate such relations. President al-Assad underlined the importance of the role played by the specialized committees and technical teams in completing the implementation of the economic plans and investment projects defined in the agreement signed by the Syrian and Iranian governments last March. His Excellency pointed out that the two countries' economic circumstances and requirements represent the basic part in determining the priorities of implementing such plans and projects, which serve the two people's joint interests. Qasimi, on his part, said Iran will economically spare no effort that would enhance the Syrian strength and steadfastness, adding that the Iranian leadership is keen on maintaining constant coordination with the Syrian government in order to realize the two countries' joint economic visions, which would strengthen the relations between both people. Units of the army and the armed forces on Tuesday continued to launch more military operations against the Takfir terrorist organizations across the country, repelling their infiltration attempts and killing scores of them and injuring others, in addition to destroying their arms and vehicles.
Backed by the Syrian Air Force, Syrian Arab Army units have thwarted attempts by the terrorist organizations to infiltrate into military checkpoints in Hama northern countryside, killing many of them and destroying their armored vehicles. In Hasaka western suburb, a Syrian Arab Army unit, in cooperation with the People's Defense Groups, reportedly maintained full control over Ash-Shalabi village. Meanwhile, the army foiled an infiltration attempt by terrorists into Al-Qasr and Al-Haqaf villages in Sueda outskirts, inflicting on them heavy losses in men and material. In Idlib, a Syrian Arab Army unit has repelled an attack by terrorists on the city of Ariha and foiled another launched by a booby-trapped truck on military checkpoints in the surroundings of Al-Mastuma village, eliminating a number of terrorists in Kafr Najd and Nahliya. In Aleppo, a Syrian Arab Army unit, in cooperation with the competent authorities, destroyed a tunnel used by terrorists in Arjat al-Kayali area. The army units also eliminated many ISIS terrorists in the environs of the Air College and destroyed their hideouts and vehicles in Moran, Soran and Kafr Hamra in the city's countryside. In Palmyra suburb, the army also foiled an attempt by terrorists to infiltrate into Station 3, killing and wounding many of them and destroying their weapons. The army units, moreover, killed and wounded several ISIL terrorists outside the city and west of al-Assad's barricade.
The Foreign and Expatriates Minister asserted that the crisis in Syria is a result of the crimes committed by the externally supported terrorist organizations against the Syrian people, pointing out that the continuation of the crisis and the aggravation of its repercussions wouldn't have happened without the support provided by some parties, including the Jordanian regime. In response to the false allegations by the representative of the Jordanian regime in the UN, the Foreign and Expatriates Minister added that the overt and systematic support by the Jordanian regime to the terrorist organizations, on top of which Jabhat al-Nusra and its sisters, has aggravated the suffering of the Syrian people by allowing the terrorists to control certain border areas, explaining that such a collusion has affected the United Nations when one of its peacekeepers was hijacking by al-Nusra, which was protected by the Jordanian regime. The ministry confirmed that the Jordanian regime's claim of supporting a political solution for the crisis in Syria is not consistent with the logistical support provided for the terrorist organizations, including al-Nusra. And also, it contrasts with what was announced by the Jordanian officials overtraining the so-called elements of the Syrian tribes. The Foreign Ministry called on the UN Security Council to take firm measures to stop the practices of the Jordanian regime, which threaten the security and stability in the region and the whole world. Iraqi Foreign Minister Ibrahim al-Jafari asserted the deep relations between Iraq and Iran, pointing out to the support provided by Tehran to his country in the face of terrorist organizations. Following his meeting with Iranian Defense Minister Hossein Dahqa, al-Jafari said that his country is fighting a global war against terrorists who came from more than 62 countries. Al-Jafari voiced confidence that the Iraqi people would overcome the challenges through integrated efforts to maintain the national unity and with the help of the friendly countries. For his part, Iranian Defense Minister Dahqan renews his country's continuous support to Iraq, calling for enhancing the relation in various domains. Saudi airstrikes continued in Yemen, targeting several sites in Saada and Adan, as the Saudi artillery pounded the border area of Al-Zahr Directorate. The fierce battles continued between the Yemeni army supported by the People's Committees and the militias of Hadi Ain Taz, Marib and Dali. Meanwhile, the Yemeni capital, Sana'a, witnessed a huge demonstration, which is the largest since the beginning of the Saudi-led aggression, calling for lifting the siege and supporting the trapped people in the country. With this, we conclude our news for today. Thank you for watching. For more details about Syria and the region and to view this bulletin again, you can always visit our website in English, syriaonline.sy. Now to latest business and market news with Nariman, but after a short break.
Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon. Prime Minister Dr. Wael Halaqi and advisor to the first Vice President of Iran, head of the Iranian-Syrian Economic Relations Development Committee, Rustam Qasimi, had discussed means to implement the agreements between the two countries and sign new agreements to boost economic, commercial, and industrial and technical cooperation. Al-Halaqi called for having a strategic map to further develop the growing Iranian-Syrian relations and meet the local market's needs in light of the unjust embargo imposed on Syria, adding that the Iranian companies will have priority in the reconstruction stage and the projects to rehabilitate the infrastructure damaged by the terrorist acts. For his part, Qasimi reasserted Iran's support for the Syrian people and leadership and their commitment to expand the relations between the two countries. Under the title Syrians Construct Syria, and with the participation of 42 construction national and foreign companies and a number of embassies in Damascus. The activities of the second exhibition for reconstructing Syria were launched today in Damaro's Hotel in Damascus. The director of the Syrian International Establishment for Marketing asserted that joining the foreign companies from Austria, China and South Korea, in addition to the national companies in the new round of the exhibition, is a major step to meet the demand of the reconstruction stage and attracting the modern techniques from various countries to develop the business strategy for the next stage. Crude oil prices fell today as slow economic growth and high supplies meant that markets remain oversupplied, although U.S. prices received some support from rising demand ahead of the summer driving season. Gold slipped after a 5-day rally today on profit-taking as the dollar regained some ground, with investors looking to the Greek debt crisis for trading coups, as well as the upcoming minutes from the latest Federal Reserve meeting. Damascus Securities Exchange Index rose more than 1 point to close the session on 1,212 points. Moreover, the trading bulk reached 21,000, distributed on 22 deals, with a total value exceeded 2 million Syrian pounds. On the other hand, the banking sector ranked first, followed by the insurance sector. And now over to some main currencies exchange rates according to the bulletin of the Central Bank of Syria. Ladies and gentlemen, this was our economic news for today. Thank you for watching. Goodbye.